Okay, in the beginning part of this meeting, I had a little word game for you guys, and it's a fun little game. I do this every year with the students, and it's just to illustrate a point. My little example is you started with bed, and you wanted to get to tan. And you change one letter at a time, and every time you change a letter, you should have an actual word. So I change B to F, so I end up with fed. I change E to A, so I have fad. And I change my D to an N, so I have fan. And in my last step, I change F to T, so now I have tan. Okay, so all we did was change bed into tan one letter at a time. This is exactly what you're going to do with proving trig identities. All you're going to do is take your left-hand side of your equation. I'm going to flip this over here. And this is problem 8-98C. You're just going to take one side and one step at a time, turn it into the right-hand side. Okay, you are not going to move things from the right to the left or the left to the right. You just turn one side into the other. Now you can start on the right-hand side and turn it into the left-hand side. Either side will work, just as long as you stay on one side. For this problem, however, I think I'm going to start on my left-hand side. And what I'm going to do is just try something. And sometimes you and your neighbor aren't going to look the same. And sometimes you're going to have to try more than once before you get yourself there. So for this problem, I'm just going to take my cosecant and put everything into terms of sine and cosine. So cosecant is really 1 over sine of x right there. Make this a little bigger. Okay, that's lovely. But let's go ahead and add our numerator and find our common denominator, which is going to be the sine of x over the sine of x. Okay, so multiply those out, and lo and behold, I get sine squared x over sine minus 1 over sine of x over 1 over sine of x. All right, well, we can now, these now have the same denominator. Let's put them together. We end up with sine squared x minus 1 over sine of x over 1 times the sine of x. Well, if I take my reciprocal, which is just another way of saying I'm going to take a giant 1 here, and multiply, because here comes your big ones, right? That's a 1, that's a 1, and I end up with something that looks like this. Sine squared x minus 1 over sine of x times sine of x over 1. Well, here's a giant 1. Lo and behold, I'm with sine squared x minus 1. And just as a quick reminder, we want to get this to look like this. I've just done several steps, but we're not there yet. Eventually, I'm going to turn this into this. Well, this looks kind of similar to an identity you guys have known. I'm going to turn the page here. Let's continue how getting there. We have sine squared x minus 1. And what it looks like is we've had this identity, cosine squared x plus sine squared x equals 1. That's Pythagorean's identity, right? That's the big important one. Hey, if I move sine squared x over here, sine squared x. Okay, it's getting close to this, but in this side, it's got the sine squared x is positive and the 1 is negative, and cosine squared x here is positive. Well, let's try multiplying both sides by minus 1. right? We can do that. So we end up with minus cosine squared x equals, well, now we got our minus 1, and our sine squared x is positive. Hey, and I'm just going to reach over here and grab my highlighter. This isn't the same as this. And sine squared x minus 1 is equal to negative cosine squared x. So this is a legal move. We can do this. We can say sine squared x minus 1 is equal to minus cosine squared x. So we've officially turned our left-hand side into our right-hand side. And let me flip that back. There we go. We went from here, and after using several identities, just knowing that the cosecant is 1 over the sine of x, and doing some arithmetic, and then coming all the way down here and noticing, that looks very familiar, like it's similar but not quite to Pythagorean's identity. But if we rearrange Pythagorean's identity, we get sine squared x minus 1 equals minus cosine squared x. Okay, it's a bit of a game. It's a lot like that word game. And sometimes you find your path very quickly, and sometimes it takes a long time. This is one of the problems out of the book, and you're going to be doing A and B. And we will do another example during our live session, Tuesday and Wednesday.